Alright, the game is live, and Emil, the Polish stream, already left the game, so he was probably gonna jump into one of our streams and gonna cast the game from there. But we're gonna focus on what we have in front of us right now. This is the first game in the round of 8 at the Esports Venture Cup between Happy, starting here at the bottom right, of Frost, and Snute, starting to the top right. It is a best of 5, so we will see potential 5 matches between these two bad boys. And that's actually going to be a very interesting series. Happy is known for his mech, and Snute is just someone who is not afraid to send swarm hosts into the games. Earlier when Harstim and Targa were playing each other, they were joking a little bit. They were trying to finish the series really fast or really quickly, because they said they need to make up for some time that Happy is definitely going to waste, since his games are usually going to take a very long time. So it's gonna get really interesting to see how Snute is going to react to Happy style, and I could certainly see a battle between mech and swarm host unfolding in front of us. And I like that, actually. I know that a lot of people do not really enjoy that all too much, but I feel that can be very strategic and tactical, and I would love to see at least one of those games between the two of them. These days I actually enjoy it quite a lot when a Terran player plays mech against Zerg, and I want to see how the Zerg reacts. I casted the Code A games today as well, and Lenok was up against Bravo, and I have to say that I think especially in the first game that the two of them played, where Bravo decided to go into mech, Lenok made a lot of mistake. I casted so many ZvT plays these days where we have mech versus a normal Zerg composition that I feel what Lenok did there was not really the right choice. He was committing to a Mutalisk play, and that's something that you can really do, and you can win a game with this, but you should always switch your tech up a little bit during the game so that your opponent is forced to adjust to what you do, and then you try to blindside him, surprise him with a massive amount of Mutalisks at some point, but that only works if we have a really strong economy. That's something that we might see here as well, but we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. So far, we still don't know what we're going to see. If Snute goes into Swarm Host, if he goes into Mutalisk, if Happy is really committing to that mech style. So we're just guessing here a little bit. But Happy already has the first gas taken. He also has the command center on the low ground now. The Overlord is going to find that out very soon. Overlord number 1 went to the top left, and well, but at the bottom right, the second Overlord that was sent down into this position, he is already in the know that there is a Terran player, so he has all the information that he needs. On the other hand, with the limited vision of the command center, Happy doesn't know where Snute starts. He has no idea. He's currently scouting the map with a single SCV, and that SCV is going to take a long time until he arrives up here at the top left, only to find out that Snute is actually spawning top right. So double queen is now being started with the gas not taken. We will most likely see 4 queens before gas is going to be started for Snute. In the main base of Happy, we do not only have a bunker at the front that gives this base a bit of security against aggression with early Zerglings, but also it gives him, he has the factory started and the second gas taken, so it looks more and more likely that we are exactly going to see what we were predicting a little bit earlier. We have right now at the top right, the first gas is being taken, and the extra queens have been started. So queen number 3 and number 4 are currently being produced, and well, that will help him a lot to spread creep, to secure himself against Hellions, to make his bases safe against potential Banshee attacks. And that one SCV finally arrives at the top right. Is like, oh, thank God he's spawning there. Didn't run away. I was actually in the old days. I mentioned that in one of the previous casts when we had a lot of more gold mineral patches. We had scenarios where you just would float the Terran command center to the gold mineral patch in the middle of the map, for example, in Metalopolis, and just abandon your own starting position. And that at the beginning, when the first Terran players were starting to do this, that led into very funny scenarios where actually a few players, which are scouting everywhere, didn't find the opponent. Were like, what the hell is going on? Where is he? Were thinking that they didn't scout properly at the first position, sent the SCV back and actually accused their opponents of cheating, and that was funny as hell. There were actually also a couple of people, like at the beginning of StarCraft 2, that would just float the command center, like kill their own SCVs and float the command center, load the rest of the SCVs up, float the command center into a corner, and they're like, oh my god, it's a bug, and kind of lie to their opponent in chat and try to force them to leave the game, and that sometimes worked. There are a couple of funny videos on YouTube, if I remember correctly. So yeah, the good old days. But in this particular scenario, the SCV really finds Snute. Snute does not have the ability to just simply move his hatch to another location. or to make it disappear from the map. So yeah, he is actually being scouted there. We have the Banshee opening here for Happy, and also the Cloak has been started. The Queens are gonna help out with this quite a bit, but of course he also needs the detection, and that's where the Lair comes into play, because with the Lair we have access to the Overseers, and they will be very helpful for Snute to just fend off those Banshees. The Hellions at the front are still trying to do some damage, get actually like 2 kills off on those creep tumors. They must have known where the creep tumors are, because they're doing a pretty decent job just attacking the evolution chamber, and in the process with the area of effect damage take down the creep tumors here. So Happy with a pretty decent engagement here, as much as we can say, because the Queens are already walling this off quite completely. We have upgrades into melee, not into range. 9 Roaches on the other hand, about to put an end to all of those Hellions. And here comes the Banshee already. The Queens are about to die here, but the same fate is gonna be true for the Banshee here. Well, actually, the Banshee takes down another Queen. The Roaches at the front are at least making sure that those Hellions cannot get too much done. But the Banshee goes down since we suddenly have detection. Or was it just running out of energy? I actually think it ran out of energy. I decloaked it because there was no Overseer around. Unless I'm blind, but no, I couldn't see a single Overseer. So it looks like he either accidentally uncloaked the Banshee, or the Banshee was running out of energy already. Now the Hellions heading to the bottom at first, just trying to run away. And maybe Happy is actually gonna repair those. That's what a lot of people actually do, repairing them. And well, looking at what we currently see here, we have in the main base for Happy not only the armory started with the first few upgrades, but we also can see him with a with an additional commitment into Banshees. He's sending more out onto the map, and he's also building more in his base, getting that 3rd orbital up as well. There we have the next Banshee, and well, those Roaches on the other hand, they could do some damage, and that also forces the Banshees to retreat and deal with the Roaches. The problem is that Roaches have quite a few armor points, and that makes it very difficult for the Banshees to really quickly deal with this threat. And all those SCVs are being attacked right now, a lot of them dying. At the same time we have the Hellions going hammered at 3rd base, but it's going to be quite difficult for them to really take that down. They don't do too much damage to buildings. One after another, those Roaches are taking down those SCVs, and SCVs lost so far 17, but he's really trying to do a lot more damage than that. We have siege tanks in the main base now too, and that means that with a siege tank he can try control the choke point here. That's something that he will definitely be able to do. A lot of the SCVs are going down though, and this is not an all-in by any means by Snute. He's just trying to get ahead in the series, or ahead in the game itself, and that's something that he will easily accomplish with this. 34 Harvesters against 58, that's what we currently see in the game. Harvesters killed 21 against 2, and this base is of course still very much alive, since Hellions are just not all that great against buildings, and suddenly they're also on the run since the Roaches are trying to retreat, and that means they are actually caught in between a couple of Roach numbers, and well, there's 1 kill. Does he get the 2nd shot off? Not quite, but Happy is starting to fall behind quite significantly here. 2,500 resources lost for the Zerg player and 3,300 for the Terran. So Happy is struggling a little bit. Snute already getting himself a 4th base at that. And the Viking, that has a nice touch to it, starting to hunt down Overlord. So that's going to help him quite a bit, especially at, of course, bases where the Zerg player is trying to spread creep to delay that. But the big problem here is that Happy is already far behind. And he needs to somehow just try to stabilize, get his 3rd base up, get a stable economy, get his army into the picture. But it's not going to be easy against someone who's already on his way into Spire. Of course, admittedly a little bit late, but that's because he had this Roach commitment in the early mid-game. But what's a little bit more important than that is that with 4 bases, Snute will have all the resources in the world to just make his tech switches happen, and he's probably also going to start another 5th base right over there at some point. With the extra mineral income that he has, he can just build spines and spores to really secure these bases for himself. But I wouldn't be surprised to see a couple of Mutalisks now that he has the Spire tech, since he's forced Happy basically to build a couple of additional siege tanks and also ground units. There's only 1 Thor so far. Let me just double check, maybe there's a 2nd one somewhere. No, it's 2 Thors, and that is just not enough against Mutalisks. So he will force, with Mutalisks, Happy into additional Thors and also missile turrets. but he's actually going instead into Corruptors that will be able to deal with Banshees and also with the Vikings. And then long term we might see a few Broodlords in the game, since now the Infestation Pit is also about to be completed. And against the Banshees is of course great that you have someone here. You need something. Hive-Tech already started for Snute now, and he is still using all those extra queens to spread creep across the map. It's 8 queens in total, and that is a lot of not only transfuse energy, but of course spare energy for additional active creep tumors on the map to spread that creep, get that early warning system, get that advantage on creep for your ground units. So pretty decent play so far by Snute. Very patient, but at the same time I feel it's a very crisp build that he has. Going into 3 bases, taking the 3rd, going for a couple of roaches, putting the aggression on. The one thing that really works against him though is that, oh wow, can he actually take that down? No, not quite. Is the Hellbat drop here. Hellbat drop did some damage. That killed actually 2 additional harvesters, so not too much. But I really like how Happy is now trying to approach this. Trying to just move in and maybe cripple the economy of Snute. But Snute is playing a very cautious game. He has units in basically all of his bases. We have him with Spore Crawler commitments. We have Spine Crawlers at a few of those bases. He has 4 already, has a really good income, a good creep spread. The tech is very decent as well. Already Hive about to be completed. We see even more creep spread across the map. He wants to really make sure that everything that happens is visible to him. We do not see him with too much that he did with the Spire. Just the Corruptors is enough for now. But Happy is actually moving in, and Happy has a pretty sick army there. The problem is really that he can't do anything against Corruptors taking down his Banshees and Vikings. The one thing that the Corruptors need to do is use Corruption. That's something that they do immediately. A great move here by Snute, but at the same time he's losing a big chunk of his army to those sieged up units. He doesn't have Vipers yet, and that means that he cannot use the Blinding Cloud. This base is very in danger of going down against the Terran player's army here, but Happy is losing a lot more supply than Snute currently is, and those roaches, they are moving closer and closer, taking down tank after tank, and with 34 Zerglings in production, it really looks like this army is gonna get crushed here. The queens are doing so much damage already, and even a couple of drones are starting to help out here, with the corruption being utilized by Snute. Happy just doesn't stand a chance here, can't even take down this base, so suddenly the Terran player with resources lost in total nearly at 10,000, 9,500 against 8,500, and it's time for Happy to go up against the Greater Spire. He knows that with all these Corruptors in the air, there has to be a Greater Spire commitment by Snute, so he's immediately starting his own Viking production once again. He lost already a few Vikings, but he knows now he needs a lot more than that. Ling run by at that 3rd base, but of course with the blue flame Hellbats that we see there, the Lings are going to retreat eventually. They're just going to hightail it out of there. But still, the economy is just way too good for Snute. Bit of a lag spike that we have here in the game. We have a lot of observers currently in this match, so this is one of the reasons why occasional lags are not out of the ordinary. We saw already earlier that one of the observers was dropping here. 13 additional Corruptors are being built. Snute is going full air here. How many Corruptors does he have already? It's 14. He's going up to, actually he's going up to 32 Corruptors right now, and that just shows how many Broodlords he wants to get into the game. And of course what helps him quite a bit is also that with the queen numbers that he's currently controlling, he can always rely on the transfuse to keep those Broodlords alive. And not only the Broodlords, also the Corruptors themselves, if it turns out that the channel player has a few more Vikings than anticipated. Broodlords morphed, 8 in total now. Here comes the scan, identifying also what's happening, so Happy knows what's going on. And we always say that knowing is half of the battle, and that's definitely true. The problem for Happy is that there's also the other half, and that's probably the part where he's gonna struggle a bit. 5th base also being taken here at the top of the map. And right now things are looking pretty awesome for Snute. I mean, the +2 attack upgrade, armor upgrade already started. I think he has +2 attack already. No, actually he doesn't. He's on 1-1 right now. But it's time for the Broodlords to show us their strength. And here come the Vikings, and guess what? With all those Corruptors, the Vikings are going to have a pretty shitty time. Corruption is being used here. The Queens make sure that those Broodlords don't die immediately. They're going for the transfuse, and they also start to take down a couple of the Hellbats. The Thors are about to be gone. The Broodlords, of course, with a main priority target here, taking them down one by one, and mass repair with a few SCVs on the last Thor. And now that the Vikings move in, Empire Happy is actually able to throw this back for now. All of his Vikings are getting sniped on the other hand. more and more dying here, but 2 Broodlords are still in the game, and they can do a little bit of damage to those siege tanks, and that's what we see as we speak. We also have a few mules being dropped in the heat of the battle here, but Happy is down to 130 supply against 200. He's trying to go for 4 Thors at the same time, but the Lings are now suddenly running in, and without too many Blue Flame Hellbats left, the Zerglings can do a lot of damage against siege tanks and also against the Thors. They are great, and this is the downfall. This is the demise of Happy in game number 1 as Snute clenches out a victory here on Frost and is gonna start with a lead into game number 2.